This is Mari, and I wanted to create a little video series about my life living with lupus. This is mainly for friends and family who I want to keep updated, but it's also for myself wanting to become an advocate for lupus because I didn't even know what it was until I was diagnosed. So, since this is my first video, I guess I'll do a small introduction. But my name is Mari, I'm a 22-year-old, and I've been diagnosed with lupus for a little over 2 years. Um, it's been a really hectic journey so far, and lupus has pushed me to my limits beyond anything, but it's also taught me a lot more about myself um, and about life. But so this video is mainly for my diagnosis story. Hopefully in the future I'll create more videos on like different topics like medication, treatment, diet, exercise, everything pertaining to lupus and how it affects my life personally. Um, thing about lupus is like don't take anything I say to heart. It affects everyone very differently, but I'll definitely share the things that have worked for me and haven't worked for me. But before I go into my diagnosis story, I might as well explain what is lupus. So lupus is a chronic illness, so that means I'm going to have this for life. That's fun, but it's also an autoimmune disease, and so our immune system usually attacks bad cells, so like bacteria and viruses, invaders, things that are like bad for our body that come to our body that and it doesn't recognize as our own cells, but my immune cells end up attacking my healthy cells, and it would cause things like pain, fatigue, and inflammation. In my case, I have something called lupus nephritis, so that means it affects my kidneys. I'll delve deeper into what that means in the stories, but yeah, I'll talk about my diagnosis. So it all started when I went back home for spring break in 2018. Um, I didn't really show that many symptoms back then. It was just like these bug bite like marks on my face. It was very red and inflamed. I'll probably post like pictures on the sides as I go through the story, but I didn't really think much of these marks, and I went back home. My mom, who's a non practicing physician, looked me in the face and said, "You have lupus, you need to get that checked out with your doctor." Um, me being a stubborn college girl, I didn't really think much of it. I probably just went back to my room to go sleep and hibernate for a week. Um, but yeah, I didn't really do anything about it and didn't contact my doctor. Unfortunately, things got worse when I had to go back to school, and I gained more symptoms. So, along with the inflammation on my face would actually swell up in the morning. It would get to the point where I couldn't even open my eyes. Like my eyes were just, um, it's called periorbital edema. So my eyelids would just swell up with fluid. The edema would also occur in my calves and my arms, just like a whole bunch of body swelling, a lot of chronic fatigue, insomnia, rapid weight loss. I think during that time I lost, um, well, the span of like me figuring out that I had lupus, I think I lost about like 30 pounds or so, um, a lot of joint pain, and just the continuation of the rash spreading all over my body. So I was not feeling great, not looking great. Sometimes the symptoms would decrease throughout the day, but the thing is, I was still going to college and I did have 8 a.m. classes. So I remember I would try to wear a lot of baggy clothes to class to kind of cover up the swelling, and then also try to like wear my hood and hats during class to like cover up my face. Another symptom was that I would get open sores on my lips, and so I would actually put like small band-aids on my lip and just use the excuse like, oh yeah, like I cut my lip the other day, just to kind of hide all the symptoms that were going on. Um, it was not it was not a pretty time. Um, one embarrassing story um, was that I was actually going to take my biology midterm, and this was an 8 a.m. class. So my symptoms have definitely not calmed down yet. Um, I ended up sitting next to someone I knew who had a very direct and blunt personality, to say the least. And as she handed me my midterm, she looked me in the face and said, "What the hell's wrong with your face?" And I was just like, how am I supposed to respond to that? I'm a huge softie, so I didn't end up saying anything, but I remember tearing up during my midterm, which was kind of embarrassing, and I don't think anybody saw, but like tears definitely shed. Um, Another thing about like having these symptoms during college was that my campus was very hilly. You practically had to hike to certain classrooms. There's this like one classroom that has, I think maybe like 6 flights of stairs, and my campus is also in a forest, so it's definitely like hiking. Um, and so that, along with the joint pain and fatigue, did not mix well at all. Um, I think also another thing during that year is that I lived at the very bottom of campus, and all my classes were in the northern part of campus. Also, another thing is that the the walk up was uphill, so that was definitely fun. It definitely sucked if I ever had any late night classes because the bus system would stop. I tried not, and also I also tried not to use the bus system as much either, just for like health reasons, but also because it kind of sucked with like timing with my classes at the time. Um, so that was really fun. But I think all of this occurred during the month of April, and as my symptoms would increase, would end up talking to my doctor, my primary, every day, just emailing her like what's going on. And then during the weekends, I would actually drive back home to have an appointment with her, in person, so she can see what was actually going on. There were a couple of times where I actually had to miss class because the swelling would get so bad, and I would get so worried and confused of like what the hell's going on with my body. Um, and times where I couldn't go to class, and I just wanted to figure out like there has to be like medication or something to calm down what was happening. Um, I think towards the end of April, I was referred to a dermatologist, just to like take care of all the rashes on my body. Uh, So when I went to go see the rheumatologist, they ended up doing a biopsy on 2 places. So I still have the scars from it. One of it is on my thumb, and then the other one is on my knee. Um, so they ended up diagnosing me with something called pityriasis lichenoides, and ended up giving me medication specific for that disease. But the thing is, that medication ended up making my symptoms a lot more worse. Uh, so I had to stop it after like 2 days. And the day that I stopped it, ended up going back to my doctor in person, and I kind of like broke down to her and said like, I I really want to figure out what's going on with my body. Like I can't take it anymore. Um, and she ended up referring me to a rheumatologist because she did believe there was a possibility that I did have lupus. Um, So I think the next weekend, I think this was the beginning of May, ended up going to see that rheumatologist, and I walked into that room. She looked me in the face and said, "Yep, you have lupus." So I think from like that point forward, I felt like a huge sense of relief because that month of April was just terrible, for me. Um, and it's great to finally like know where to go from there because I finally had a diagnosis. Um, One thing she did say is that when she diagnosed me, she was like, "Yeah, I see it a lot in young Filipino women," and I'm like, "Oh my god, I hit all those three marks! Like, why'd you have to say that?" But from that point forward, she asked me if I was ready to undergo treatments because she wanted to basically do a whole bunch of tests um, for like the next 3 weeks. So I would have to go back home every weekend. Um, and she asked me if I wanted to continue um, the treatments with her or if somebody was a doctor that was closer to my school. And I said, like I've been doing like this for the past month. I might as well just stay with her and like with that hospital. So I ended up going back home every weekend during college, just doing a series of tests and going to a bunch of specialty clinics. I would meet with respiratory therapists, um, doing certain tests. Like I think I got like blood work uh, every week and to get like an EKG done, just so they can see what kind of like lupus I had and where they can pinpoint like what they should do next. Um, so, anyways, after all the series of tests, they were leaning towards the diagnosis of lupus nephritis because they realized from like all my blood work that I was actually spilling or blood work and urine work. I was actually spilling protein from my kidneys, and so they planned to have a kidney biopsy for me, I believe, on June 4th, 2018. Um, and so it came the day that I got the biopsy. It was kind of nerve wracking because it was my first surgery and I didn't really know what to expect. Um, but the care team that day they were really cool. I got to meet all of them before the surgery, and I actually did go, or I actually did have anesthesia during the surgery, which was really nice because during I actually had a recent kidney biopsy and I did not have anesthesia. It was just numbing and that's it. But yeah, for my first one, I did have anesthesia, so that was cool. Um, just I slept, woke up, stayed in the hospital for 6 hours, and home the same day. Um, so with the kidney biopsy, they basically just take this giant needle, kind of bore like a very, very small hole, just enough to get like the layers of your kidney, and then just take a few samples, and that's it. Um, I don't exactly remember how long it took for me to get my diagnosis from the kidney biopsy, but I remember getting a call in college just when I was out on campus, and I love my old rheumatologist, but like the way she makes things sound is like always so positive and happy. So she called me up and was just like, "Yeah, we finally figured out what you have," and I'm just like, "But what I have is so sad. Like, why are you saying it like that?" But so they said I had class 5 lupus nephritis, and I don't really remember the exact details of it since it's been so long and my diagnosis has actually changed since then. But I'll probably list a definition right here. I believe it only affects like less than 15 or 20% of the blood vessels within your kidneys. So like that's the percent that is like already damaged. Um, and the thing about like lupus nephritis is that your classes can actually change, or you can have multiple ones. I believe class 5 was the less dangerous or less risky of the classes. So I didn't really um, mind it too much back then, or I wasn't really as worried. They started my treatment that day, and I got prescribed medication. Um, but yeah, that's the end of my diagnosis story. I'll probably talk more about like the different medications that I was put on during this journey, but I just want to add that like my story is not similar to most autoimmune diagnosis stories. On average, it takes a person 6 years to be diagnosed since their first symptom, and this comes from like a number of reasons. One of which is that our actual symptoms come in flares sometimes, so it's not like we're experiencing all these symptoms all the time. Some days we feel great, and there's some days that we don't feel great. Um, so it's very, very difficult to be diagnosed with lupus. Um, especially since it also mimics other diseases. So, like like in the past, I was diagnosed with pityriasis lichenoides, but in actuality, it was lupus. Um, and yeah, so it's it's a very interesting and weird disease, and I'm definitely open to all the questions that you guys have or any comments you guys have on this video. I definitely want to become like, I guess, a friendly little human resource for people with and without this disease. Um, but yeah, I hope you guys enjoy the video. Stay safe, stay happy, and bye.